Hello and welcome back to LeeReader. My name is Lee, if you hadn't already guessed, and it is time to talk about Twilight. Now, Twilight turned 10 years old yesterday, and it is the book series that kind of kicked off the YA fantasy book to film extravaganza almost that has happened ever since. Twilight was one of the first YA books to really explode. It is the one that got the film, and the film went huge, making the books go huge. It has spin-off series, it's had short stories, it's had everything that you could imagine. Yet talking about Twilight these days is kind of taboo because people have come to realise that Twilight isn't exactly the greatest work of fiction ever invented. And I am not ashamed to say that I have both read and enjoyed Twilight. Here is my copy of Twilight. This is actually a special edition because I not only liked Twilight, I loved Twilight. Unashamedly so. I actually have Twilight, New Moon and Eclipse in these kind of hardcover special edition boxes because first of all they are pretty beautiful. Doesn't matter what's in the inside, but the covers are beautiful. And the fourth book doesn't exist in my head because the fourth book was truly terrible. Ugh. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that Twilight is so sort of taboo these days, is that if you say you like Twilight, people will read you to filth. Like every book series, Twilight has its own set of issues, many issues for that matter, and looking back you notice the issues more. But when I first picked up Twilight, I really enjoyed it. So the first time I picked up Twilight was like 3 weeks before the film came out here in the UK. The trailers were all coming out and I was like, this looks pretty good, and my best friend said, oh, it's a book, you should read it, so it was a recommend. And I read it and I liked it. I actually finished the first book in like 2 days because it's an easy read, and I think that's important. It's a really easy read. It's not overly complicated, the characters aren't overly complex, and it is quite enjoyable. It's this vampire thriller set in this mysterious town where weird things happen, and I think a lot of the characters are quite relatable, and I think that's why a lot of people enjoy it. Now, I enjoyed it because I liked the fantasy element of it. It was a really easy fantasy book to read. The idea that there was vampires around and they were chasing each other, and then this girl had got herself into this predicament. That's why I enjoyed it. I wasn't really looking at it from a critical point of view. I wasn't thinking, well, this is happening and this is happening. I was reading for pleasure, and I enjoyed it, and that is okay. Going back and rereading it, obviously I've noticed its flaws, but I think it's key that it is, or can be, an enjoyable book. Also, when I first picked it up, I hadn't read a good book for probably about a year. I was in my first year of university, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I just needed some escapism. And Twilight worked for me, as it worked for a lot of people. I think that's another key point with most fantasy or YA books, is that escapism is key, because it's relatable, but to a point where you know it's not real, and you can just escape the real world for a little bit and get into someone else's head. Another thing as well is that after I read Twilight, I wanted to read more. I discovered YA from Twilight, so I actually have to thank Twilight for a lot of things. If I hadn't have read Twilight, I wouldn't have read The Hunger Games, and I wouldn't have read a lot of the stuff that I have now read. So Twilight also has that chain effect, because once you read it, you want to find more. Now, like I said, the series as a whole has its flaws, but I think if you do like Twilight and you do enjoy it, then that's okay. So happy birthday, Twilight. At one point in my life, you were one of my favourite books. That has changed. I'm sorry, I'm gotten older, but you did me good because you got me back into reading. So let me know your thoughts. Do you have Twilight? Do you own the books? Have you enjoyed them? Have you read them? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll have a little bit of a discussion. And that's it for today's video. I hope you guys are well, and I will see you next week with a brand new video. Goodbye. End of the video bit. So this video was kind of random. I didn't realise it was Twilight's 10th anniversary until I got to work and we got all these books delivered. I was like, what is this? And it was all the new editions. I know there's a lot of controversy kicking off because Stephanie Meyer has rewritten the book, but basically gender swapped everything. I'm probably not gonna read it. I'm probably not gonna get it, to be honest. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Did you unashamedly liked or loved Twilight? Because I did. I've grown now, but I did at one point, and I acknowledge that, and I'm okay with it. So I hope you're well. I hope you have lovely, lovely weeks, and I'll see you next week with a brand new video. Goodbye.